Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
And welcome to Overwatch Central and welcome to Denied. This is a very old series that we started way back last year. And for those that don't know what Denied is specifically, let's go over a brief explanation of the video. So in Denied, we talk about our problematic hero, which in this case is Moira, because, you know, we absolutely love her at this point. We talk about some of the 1v1 situations that these heroes can have, what heroes are good against her. And then at the end of the video, we talk about what strategies to put in place to take her out of the fight. But Miska is quickly going to explain why we think Moira is going to cause a lot of problems when she goes into live and then soon competitive.
Jeff deemed Moira to be an OP AF hero, as he said way back at BlizzCon, and in some areas he may actually be right. Moira has a huge amount of 1v1 potential and can protect herself very well due to her very easy to aim right click or alternative fire, and the self-sustain that she has from that and the rest of her kit makes her very hard to kill. In typical Denied fashion, we will be going over a Moira matchup 1v1 with all heroes within Overwatch, but it's worth noting that some heroes do counter Moira in much different ways. This video is here to take a look at all the interactions between Moira and all the other heroes in Overwatch, to highlight Moira's strengths and weaknesses in all sorts of scenarios. Let's take a look at how she does against the offense heroes first.
We start with the offense heroes first, and we are beginning with Doomfist. Doomfist is one of those heroes that can do really well against Moira. The issue is, it's quite easy for Moira to fade out of the way of your rocket punch. However, if you wait until she has faded, that's 6 seconds that you can get to her pretty easily, and if you can knock her into a wall, you will one-shot her with ease. There are a few heroes on this list like Doomfist that can counter Moira to an extent, but you need to play around her vast utility. Genji can deflect orbs back at Moira, both her healing and damage ones. When it comes to close-up fighting, Moira is so much better because of her lock-on right-click. Works very similar to Winston, and so Genji has a lot of problems there. McCree is one of those weird fights where both can sort of hold their own. However, it really comes down to who uses their cooldowns a lot better, and McCree's very good at punishing an overly aggressive Moira as well. Whilst Moira's range is pretty damn good, Pharah can get away fairly easily by flying in the air and keeping out of range. From there, she can put a lot of damage in, which is quite good. However, be wary that Moira's ultimate has a bigger range than her right-click, so just be careful of that. Reaper obviously wins those close 1v1 fights, but because of Moira's range and utility, she doesn't need to take that fight, so a lot of the time she's just going to run away with her tail between her legs. Soldier fares a little bit better than McCree in this matchup, obviously because of the healing, meaning that he can sustain himself a lot more to Moira's secondary fire. He's also a lot better at putting pressure on, in our opinion, but certainly wouldn't consider him a form of counter. Sombra can hack and EMP Moira, which takes away a lot of her tools, but she can still secondary fire, meaning she can self-sustain herself, so Sombra doesn't do that well in this matchup. And finally, Tracer, it's a bit of a case-by-case basis, but we'd say consistently Tracer wins this fight. She's incredibly good at giving chase to a weak Moira that may have faded away, and can really punish Moira in those situations. Just be wary that she can fade out of a pulse bomb, just worth noting.
Onto defense heroes, and Bastion is first, and whilst Bastion isn't the most popular hero right now, he definitely can do well against Moira in the way that it's very hard for Moira to kill Bastion due to his armor, self-heal, and the ironclad passive ability, whilst Bastion on the other hand will have a fairly easy time killing Moira himself, especially in turret mode. Hanzo is like against most heroes, good if you land the arrows, but in this case using high ground to your advantage, as Hanzo is key if you don't want to die to Moira. It's very hard to do much as Moira from the low ground. Junkrat can spam damage to force Moira to use resources as well to heal, so this is not really about killing Moira but more about putting pressure on Moira's entire team, and due to Moira not having burst heal, it can take a while for her to help her team out. Now, Moira can't fade and get away from the trap entirely, but she can juke Junkrat grenades and mines by fading at the right time. Mei can force out fade from Moira, but that does mean that Moira can very rarely be frozen. It's sort of a bit of a battle of self-sustain here, but it definitely comes down to having abilities off cooldown or not. Onto Torbjorn, and his turret doesn't actually take damage from the damage orb, making it very hard for Moira to deal with the turret at all, so she'll have to have someone else doing that for her. The 1v1 versus Moira is kind of an odd one. It really just comes down to how well the Torbjorn shoots versus how well the Moira can sustain herself, but this is not really a 1v1 you should be seeing a lot of in normal games anyway. Finally, in this category we have Widowmaker, who Moira can't really do much about, and sure, one-shot headshot does kill Moira, however the one thing Moira can do is remove the venom mine effect from herself by fading.
Next, let's go over the tanks, which have some pretty interesting results. We start with D.Va, that is probably one of the more consistent counters to Moira for a few reasons. The main one is that she can defense matrix your damage and healing orbs, taking them out of the game completely, which can starve you of any healing or damage you want to do, and obviously ult charge as well. But again, watch out, Moira's can fade out of the way of your self-destruct, just in case you didn't know. Orisa and Reinhardt fall under the same category here. In a 1v1 situation, both of these heroes don't fare all that well against Moira, but it's more the use of the barrier that makes these heroes stand out here, and maybe even a counter in some situations. We'll talk about this at the end of the video more specifically, but being able to stop Moira being able to secondary fire on your team by barring it up is a huge help for taking her down. Next up is Roadhog, who you just really can't kill. His heal self-sustains himself from your damage, and it's quite easy for him to hook, shoot, and melee kill you. Winston does have a barrier much like Reinhardt and Orisa, so can block a lot of the secondary fire coming in, but you just can't kill a Moira that's trying to self-sustain themselves. If you can wait for Moira to fade and then jump on her, you have a much bigger advantage in that situation though. And finally, Zarya, whose barriers are very good at negating some of the damage coming in from your damage orbs. They don't give her charge, which is a good thing for Moira players, but if you're trying to poke and do some damage, she's very good at stopping that happening.
The last category of heroes is support heroes, and first out is Ana. The biotic grenade definitely matters a lot here, and there are a lot of interactions between Moira and Ana in terms of the biotic grenade. And in the 1v1, it's definitely key to killing Moira, as her self-sustain can be very hard to deal with otherwise. The friendly and enemy Ana interaction with a Moira on either team is definitely very interesting and important to keep in mind in games. Also, in case you haven't noticed it already, when Moira is right-clicking someone and doing damage to them, that hero's screen will shake and actually put off the aim a little bit. Just an interesting sort of detail that kind of helps Moira out, makes her harder to hit actually. Lucio can't really do much against Moira. It's hard for Lucio to kill Moira, but it's also really hard for Moira to kill Lucio, as you can dodge damage orb fairly well, kite Moira fairly easily, keep self-healing, and just wait for another teammate to arrive. Next up is Mercy, and well, when it comes to fighting an enemy Moira or seeing who's the better Moira for either team, it really just comes down to min-maxing use of your abilities. The actual 1v1 between the two rarely happens and isn't very interesting. Symmetra can't really give Moira a hard time due to her effective range. However, Moira can't really mess with Symmetra too much either, as her damage orb doesn't actually sap out the Symmetra turrets, and it's hard for Moira to kill them quickly. Last but not least is Sunyata, who, just like against most other heroes, just has to deal burst damage fast enough to kill the hero that is pressuring him. The Discord orb and charged up shot definitely helps here.
Moira's counters aren't necessarily as cut and dry as the 1v1 situations that we've shown. A good example of this is Trace and Winston. They did okay in the matchup, but they can be so much more successful and so much more of a counter to Moira with a well-timed and coordinated dive. Especially once she's used Fade, as she's incredibly susceptible of being killed once she has no movement abilities. Think of it like Doomfist. Once he's used all of his abilities, he's kind of a sitting duck in a lot of situations, and that's exactly the same with Moira. Not only that, we still need to talk about barriers, which when these tanks are played properly can be a huge counter to Moira's playstyle. Not only does it stop her getting some secondary fire damage in, but it's the only real way of her getting primary weapon charge for her healing. If she's forced to heal her team a lot but doesn't have any weapon charge, she will try and right click your team to get some of it back. However, if it's blocked by a barrier, she will be starved of healing and her team will eventually die. So whilst the likes of Reinhardt and Orisa didn't really do that much to stop Moira in a 1v1, just having that barrier to stop their team from being siphoned is a big counter to how Moira wants to play. So if you run into a D.Va eating all of your orbs and a Reinhardt barrier that stops you right clicking, you can essentially do nothing. But that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Do let us know if you can think of any other heroes that do counter Moira to an extent. Let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want more videos like this, and let us know what other things you would like us to deny in the future. And until next time, take care. We'll see you then.